It's happening. You just don't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't see any hope for change. I continued to help others. I think I had a need to really help others deeply.
He
I
does.
lost, I gave a lot of money to someone who eventually I realized, no, this is an unending.
Hi, friend. Welcome back to Glory and Grit, where faith meets real life. If this is your first time joining us today, let me suggest that you go back and listen to the first few episodes where we talk about the heart behind Glory and Grit. And if you are coming back after our 10th episode, episode 11, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Stephanie, and I'm really glad you're here today. Are you ready? Okay, let's get started. Deep breath. Today's episode is for the person who has looked at a season of their life and thought, I don't see any movement. I don't see any change. I don't know what God is doing here. Because some seasons aren't loud. They're quiet, they're slow, they're heavy in ways that are hard to explain. And sometimes those are the very seasons that God is doing deep work beneath the surface. And oftentimes we don't understand until much later what that work is. Today, we're going to talk about that through a real conversation rooted in one of those kinds of seasons. I'm really grateful to have my husband, Marty, here with me today, as we're going to talk about a season in his life that carried this kind of quiet weight. There he is. Welcome to the show, Marty. And so for people who are hearing your story for the first time, can you give us just a little context for the seasons that we'll be discussing today?
I went to college at 17. I was married at 19. By 23, I had 2 children. We adopted a third at 35. When I was about 53, my wife took ill and her health continued to go downhill. And by 57, I was a widower. I was no longer connected to somebody. I was just by myself that way.
And please tell us what felt heaviest when you went about your day-to-day life after those first few months of Anne Marie's death.
Even though I was no longer working 12-hour days in order to take time in the middle of the day to care for her, my life was still overwhelmed in a number of ways. I was all right when I didn't trip over reminders of her. And when I saw something that reminded me strongly of her, then it would wash over me all over again.
What would wash over you? What did that feel like? For someone who's looking to understand widowerhood and what that experience is for maybe someone in their own family or experiences, how would you be able to give them an idea of what that felt like?
Maybe I can do it by an analogy. When my mother died, my father kept a stuffed animal in the seat of the vehicle where my mother would have ridden.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the way I was. I had boxes piled on that side of the bed. I slept on the other side of the bed.
Yeah.
I was connected, but I wasn't connected.
So you had some loneliness there for a while. Were there other ways that loneliness came forth in your life? Like you had the boxes on her side of the bed. Were there other things in that loneliness phase that kind of hit you?
Others who knew me that I was, well, depressing looking. Looked like I was depressed somewhat. They could perceive my mood better than I could. I had a wide range of acquaintances through Toastmasters at church, but as far as my own feelings, I had an outlet, and that outlet was in sending weekly emails to family. I would write down what I was feeling or try to. Much of that was just, here's what I did, here's what I did. But you could
Mhm.
see what was going on in my life as a result of those emails.
Did you start doing those emails before or during that time phase? Those
I started,
family emails?
I started them before that time frame.
Okay.
One of the reasons I think would be that my wife couldn't communicate verbally for about 5 years. So if you hear me talking to myself, it's because I'm used to doing it. Not so much now, but you get the idea.
Right, right. Do you think there's anything that people didn't really see about what you were carrying?
We often say, I know how you feel.
Mhm.
Well, God knows how you feel, but other people have a tough time with it. I have a tough time knowing how people feel. And I'm sure they have the same problem with me. They can see it in outward ways, such as whether I look tired when I wouldn't be expected to be tired or depressed or whatever. I found it hard to get in touch with my feelings. I find it hard to get in touch with my feelings. I still do.
A lot of people, yeah, have same issue. During that time, did you feel like God was still close to you or that he was quiet or hard to understand what was happening?
I talked to him a lot in the car. That was a place where no one else was listening. And I had the time to do that. And I knew he heard. He's always supported me. He supported me in ways that are hard to describe sometimes, but he's always pushing the blows in my life. And he was always there. No question, no question. But I was just half a person.
So at the time, what did faith look like to you? Like, was your faith still strong? Did you have some nights when it was kind of shaky or
I would have to say it was strong. I was blessed to have activities that connected me to church, connected me to people that I met through church. I was the employment specialist, and so I was actively trying to help people obtain employment. Sometimes I carried that a little too far. I also had the opportunity to assist someone whom I had assisted starting years before when it asked for money to do a test. I gave her that money, and it turned out that yes, she did indeed have cancer. And I would be there occasionally during the chemo sessions. She had difficulty finding a place to live with her relatives where they make life really difficult for her. And so I would help her in those moves, drop off food even, travel to another state, bring her to another state so she could visit a brother. So yes, I tend to go all out and then some.
And he still does, people. But it's one of your great characteristics about you is that you care about everybody and you're willing to help everybody.
Good.
Looking back now, what do you think God was doing in that season, even when you couldn't see it?
I think that he was helping me take charge of my life little by little. I know that sounds strange because I did everything toward, especially toward the end, my wife, but I was still focused on her, not on what I might want to do. And when she first died, I still had others in the family I needed to work. Eventually, I decided, it took months, that I needed a space for myself. And so I think he accomplished that. He allowed me to make some mistakes that provided more insight into my handling of money, more
Mhm.
insight into my interactions with family and so forth.
Okay. Were there things that shaped you before you had words to describe them?
I'm not sure that I perceived them even then, but in thinking about the question you asked for this podcast, I look back at a year plus worth of emails trying to see by what I had written what I felt and what I was doing. And one of the things that came out of it was the ability to insist on a little bit of time for myself.
Did that season prepare you in a way that you didn't understand until later? Like, did all the things that happened during that time prepare you in some way for something that happened later that you were able to look back and go, "Oh, now I know why that and that happened because it prepared me for this."
Some of the activities that took place did prepare me. One of them was that I was set apart as a technology specialist. And so I traveled around various units of the church, helping them get their computers set up where they could do things online for membership and so forth. And because of that, I was eventually the only man in a room full of women who were having a function that I could assist with. And I teased someone, she teased back, and I'm married to her now.
Let's see.
More about the family situation in my home because that's where a lot of the stress came from.
Go ahead.
I how to talk about me during that time without talking about the other things. In order for my wife to be in the house the last few months when she wasn't capable of getting out of the house by herself if there was a fire or something, I allowed one of our daughters to live with us. And when my wife died, she was still there, and her children were still there. And eventually her boyfriend was still there. And because of that, when I wasn't working, often I was the default babysitter. I mean, grandparents can relate to this, but they may not be working full time as I was while doing that. So I would read scriptures with them. I would make sure that they got fed. We went places together. We traveled long distances together at times. And because of that, I wasn't really alone that way. I didn't have the time to just unwind and be apart from them. I was a Toastmaster. I would find myself sometimes bringing them to meetings because I didn't have any alternatives. I couldn't drop them off with anyone. It became quite a relief toward the end of that period when my daughter felt like she was ready to move out. At that point, that's when I saw change, a possibility of change in my life. From the time that my wife died until
Hmm.
that point, it felt like nothing was ever going to change. I was going to be stuck in this box where I am providing so much to others that I'd had nothing for myself. That sounds
Mm.
selfish. I don't like that. This even saying that, but I guess I wanted that. And as soon as she started to make moves in that direction, I changed the locks. I put an electric lock on one door and threw away the keys for the others.
When she started to make the
Move to come out of.
move to move on, move out and get her own place, and that is when you're saying that that's when you started to feel like, oh, me time. Um, I needed that. Is that when you start to realize that you really did need that?
It was when I actually got to think it might happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I needed it before then. There's a picture of me somewhere with a sleep mask on my forehead while I'm watching a grandson jump up and down on a trampoline in my backyard because I'm alternating between work and sleep and children, work and sleep and children. And suddenly it didn't have to be that way anymore. It was shortly after I saw light at the end of the tunnel that a friend said, Marty, I think you're stable enough to date again. Yeah, and I remember dating the first time.
And tell us why you don't remember dating the first time.
Well, I just kind of fell in to being married. It sounds weird. You're going to get a backstory.
You don't remember dating the first time.
I was walking with someone, carrying her tray, pulling out her chair because that's what mother taught me to do. I was a helpful person. And then once Anne Marie realized, no, I wasn't dating this person, she went all out. She put on a green dress with there's a choker with an A sitting right there. And she asked Prentice to set up a chair next to her when we went to eat. No, they set it right across from me, and I just sat there, jaw dropped, staring at her. We talked, but before that we talked. She was trying to get the goat of the person she thought was dating me, so she would say, "How'd I like to go camping?" To hear the things I enjoy and so forth. Because I was having a conversation with her while she didn't feel like she was having to make it serious because after all, I was supposedly dating someone else. So when it unfolded that no, I wasn't, suddenly we were able to talk to each other more directly. Kind of like,
And that was in high school, right?
no, this is college.
College. Okay.
And an example of this is when I proposed, because we've been talking about those important questions before we actually ask each other. When you get married, how many children are you going to have? Who's going to manage the money? Things like that. It was just understood. Here I am crossing the street. It's raining lightly. We're carrying king and queen costumes because this is approaching Halloween. Carrying guitar. We're headed to a church service. And I'm playing the guitar at church. And I asked her, can I ask you a question? Yes. Will you marry me? Why? And the why wasn't, I'm thinking, because we're talking about this all this time. I'm thinking, no, she's asking why here in the rain, the most unromantic
In the
circumstance.
rain.
So,
Not the most romantic proposal.
so it worked for us. She said, okay. Yes, it was a life where we talked to each other, but we didn't talk to each other. At least not then, not that.
Ah, and you said that you talk to yourself a lot and that the two of you talked when the first few weeks. Did you find yourself talking, not just talking to yourself, but turning to talk to her?
You're talking about after she died, right?
Yes, yes.
I was very careful not to do that. I had relied on her for so much in life that I was afraid I would ask her lots of questions and wait for feedback and so forth. So I would always say, God, Father, let Emery know I love her. That was pretty much the extent of it. Or if
Mhm.
I had to say something, tell Emery such and such. I did not want to get in the habit of thinking about her that closely.
Right, right.
Really easy to not do that. She's busy after all. She's stuff to do now she's dead.
Yes. Um, what would you say to a person who feels like nothing in their life is changing right now and that God isn't working in their life?
It's happening. You just don't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't see any hope for change. I continued to help others. I think I had a need to really help others deeply.
He
I
does.
lost, I gave a lot of money to someone who eventually I realized, no, this is an unending situation. I had to stop doing that. Thinking, well, I'll prop him up and eventually he'll gain some traction and go off and have a job and life. And no, he had life, but it wasn't that apparently. So I needed to put some boundaries on my life. And that's something that I generally was not very good at doing because I want to help all the way.
What do you wish that someone had said to you when you were in that season of widowerhood? Which is, if it's not a word, I just made it a word.
Well, I'd like to start by saying something that someone did say to me. I'm at the funeral, and the 6-year-old granddaughter has gotten up there and has talked about how much she loves her grandmother and so forth and how nice she was. And we get to a hymn. I'm sitting there. Now, you know that I sing. I really sing.
Very beautifully.
And my mother-in-law said, sing, Martin. She would want you to. I wasn't sure whether I should sing again. And she said, sing it. So I did. And I continued to sing. And music has been one of my outlets always. Well, since
Mhm.
junior high school, probably. No, before that. Way before that. But singing with the guitar was junior high. Onward.
And you were saying that the granddaughter said something to you?
The granddaughter got up during the funeral service, walked to the lectern, and told an audience of people, most of whom she didn't know, how much she loved her grandmother and how nice she was. This is the same daughter who drew a picture of Anne Marie in the casket with Anne Marie smiling with the word happy written across her. She knew now that Anne Marie was happy, was free of all the physical limitations she had had for many years.
Mhm.
Maybe I did
Wow.
something.
Maybe
Okay.
what?
I started to say something and I realized, no, I can't take credit for that. She was just a sweet kid.
Before we wrap this up, is there a favorite scripture or a verse that feels fitting for this conversation or that you used a lot during your widowerhood that you'd like to share with us?
I'm not sure that I could point to one that relates to that, but I can point to one. where James says, "He who lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. He gives to all men liberally. He give it to you, and he won't call you a jerk. He won't upbraid you." Well, I asked for a lot of help, and I received a lot of help during that time. I had continuous employment during that time, which is unusual if you consider that I was a government contractor. I was supported in many ways, and it was a real blessing. I had friends from Toastmasters supported me. I had friends from church who buoyed me up. I wasn't alone. And it's true that God speaks through other people. Some of
Mm.
those I had to go back to before Henry died to explain. But basically, no, you're not alone. Look around you. There are people who love you. There are people who know about you, even if they don't know very much about you. There are acquaintances who wish you well. There are always people praying for you. There are.
So God's always working for you.
He
Or
is.
not working for you, but working for your
Oh,
behalf on your behalf.
yeah, he is.
I like that. So I'm gonna let that be our scripture for this episode. Is there anything else that you would like to share with listeners about getting through a season of their life like this, or a tough season where they feel like God maybe isn't working for their good?
Oh, here I was poised to give some practical advice. Don't
Hmm?
make big financial decisions right after this
Well,
huge loss.
give your practical advice followed by your spiritual advice. How about that?
Okay. Avoid making big financial decisions. Avoid making any big decisions right away. Give yourself time because you'll need that time. Don't judge other people too harshly. Often they're doing the best they know how. I,
Okay.
I'm blessed. I was blessed to have those years with her to say goodbye. I was blessed afterward with the resources and the people who eventually helped me become someone that someone else would want to marry. Well, that sounds weird, but you have to be the kind of person that you would want to marry. And I was still too dependent. When I was ready to seize my life again, that's when things started to turn around for me. It may take some time, but I'd already had 5 years to say goodbye. Now I needed to say hello to my new self, whatever that would be.
Mm, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your experience, your testimony. Thank you for being a great husband and a big supporter of the podcast. So, in closing, we're just going to say that grief isn't something that you rush through, it's something that you learn to carry one step at a time. In today's conversation, felt close to home. If you're walking through loss or a season you would never have chosen, I want you to just hear this. God is not absent in your grief. Even when it's quiet, even when it hurts, even when nothing makes sense, He is still there. He is still near. And somehow, in ways that we don't always see right away, He's still gently writing your story. and he's moving it forward, not backwards. And it's not standing still. Okay. Thank you for sitting in on this conversation with us today. I'm your host, Stephanie, and I'm really glad you were able to join us for today's conversation. If you enjoyed the conversation, please feel free to share the episode, the podcast itself, the reflection guide with a friend who may be going through this season of widowerhood or grief of any kind or loss of any kind, in hopes that it can help uplift their day. While you're sharing the episode and the reflection guide, you can also share a prayer with them as well. Everyone needs prayer. It's always good. And remember, glory doesn't come without grit. See you next week.